This video will demonstrate how to use a waveform sequencer on current AWG instruments, or arbitrary waveform generators. The waveform sequencer allows users to build very complex signals derived from many waveforms and use the AWG memory more efficiently. As you can see from this slide, the sequencer has many capabilities, allowing infinite possibilities in signal generation. This slide demonstrates the sequencer being used to negotiate a SATA device into loopback, or built-in self-test mode. As you can see, this capability is fairly complex, but by the end of this video, hopefully you should be able to make sense of this. As we look at the actual display of the AWG, let me walk you through the menus and features. Think of the sequencer as an MPEG player for waveforms instead of music. As you can see on the left, you have a waveform list similar to your song list. To create a playlist or sequence, you just drag and drop a waveform into the sequence in the order that you want to play it. So if I were to create a playlist of 3 songs, I would just drag them into the sequence list. The sequencer gives you more options, such as waiting for a trigger. So in this case, if you had this set for waiting for a trigger, it would wait for an input from the front panel of the instrument before it starts playing this first waveform. You can either set this to on or off. We will leave it off for this particular case. You can also specify how many times you want this particular song to repeat by putting in a number here. You can set it for infinite as a default, so it will just continue to repeat this waveform or this song or waveform until you want to jump out of it. And that's the next column. Is say you want to go to the next waveform when you get an event again from the front of the instrument. So you have a trigger input from the front of the instruments, and you also have an event input from the front of the instrument. For this demo, we're just going to leave these both off. So we've got 3 waveforms here. Now we can also create subsequences, in the sense that, say you want to play these 3 songs, but then you want to play a whole album after those 3 songs have been completed. So what I can do is go in and look under my subsequence tab. I created a subsequence called album 1. So I'm just going to drag and drop that into the sequence list. So now it will play these 3 songs and then play this album. And then what I could do is this last column over here allows me to specify where I want the next step to go to. So I'm going to go ahead and say 1, so it will repeat and go back to the beginning. So once this album has been completed, it will automatically go back to 1 and start over again and repeat this whole process. Now we can go in and look at this, edit the actual subsequence, and you can see I have basically 3 songs in this album that will be played. And in this particular case, I have, if we look at each one of these waveforms, the first one is basically noise type waveform. The second one is a DC waveform. And the third one is the same as the first, which is the noise type waveform. So I have repeated the DC waveform 2 repeats, so it's going to be twice as long as the actual display. So let me go back to the main sequence here. Not only can we display it in tabular format, but we can also display it in a graphical format. So now you can actually see what the waveforms are going to look like. So in this case, the first waveform is a sine wave. If we go back to user defined. So this song 1 is a sine wave. The second one is a square wave. And you can see typical square wave. On the first one, I've also created some markers at the beginning of the waveform that I can use for a trigger. The third waveform is just a triangle waveform. And then we get into the subsequence, which is the noise waveform. And if we actually go back and go back to our we can look at the actual subsequence where we have the noise waveform, the DC waveform, and then the noise waveform again. So this is another way to view this very easily. As we look at this sequence in real time with the scope display on the bottom, we can see we are getting what we expected, with the sine wave, square wave, triangle wave, and then the subsequence of the noise and DC waveforms. Now let's change the repeat counts and watch the waveform get updated as we do this. So you can see we've changed the repeat to 2. The second waveform is now 2. We've also done this with the triangle wave. Now we're going to go ahead and edit the subsequence and change the first waveform to a 2 repeat. And you'll notice that now the subsequence noise waveform will be twice as long at the very beginning here as soon as it updates. So you can see with the very easy changes in the sequence, you can make some very powerful waveforms or signals that can be used in many different applications. This is just a very easy, simple example that hopefully shows you the capabilities of the sequencer. Thank you.